All right, let's dive in. Today, we are looking up, way, way up, because there is a new race for the moon happening right now. But here's the twist. This time, the goal isn't just to visit, it's to build. And the United States has a plan so ambitious it could change literally everything about our future in space.
You know, the source material we're digging into today kicks off with this iconic line. It just perfectly sets the mood for a brand new chapter of space exploration. It feels familiar, right? But as you're about to see, the mission this time around is, well, it's very, very different.
So yeah, we're calling it a new race to the moon. And sure, that brings back all these images from the 1960s. But the goals, the stakes, they've totally changed. This isn't just a sequel, you guys. This is a whole new story.
Okay, so what's the main plot point here? It's this. The United States is officially putting its weight behind a huge new mission. And one of the stated goals is to get there before its competitors, especially China. So right away, you know this isn't just about science. It's also a high-stakes international competition. And this right here, this just sums up the whole thing perfectly. The original space race was all about flags and footprints. Get there first, plant the flag, take a picture, come home. It was a symbolic victory. But this new race, it's all about building permanent outposts. The goal has shifted from just visiting to actually living there.
So what does this plan to stay actually look like? I mean, what are we talking about here? Let's get into the nitty-gritty of how NASA plans to build what could become humanity's first real home away from Earth. I mean, this quote from NASA's chief is basically the entire mission statement in a nutshell. It's just such a powerful way of saying that this is a whole new era. We're not just exploring anymore. We're focused on building something that lasts, something that can be used again and again.
And this reveals a really important change in strategy. See, the old plan was to build something called the Gateway, which would have been a station that orbited the moon. But now, NASA's pivoted to this idea called building surface. It means they're focusing all their energy on building a base directly on the moon itself. It's more direct, probably harder, but ultimately it's a much more permanent solution. And check out this timeline. They're aiming to have humans back on the moon by 2028. But honestly, the really mind-blowing date is just 2 years after that. They want a permanent outpost up and running by 2030. That is an incredibly ambitious schedule.
Of course, you can't have a race without competitors. So who are the key players in this 21st century lunar dash? And what exactly is everyone fighting for? What's the prize at the end of all this?
Well, the source material lays out 3 main competitors. You've got the United States, which is pushing this new plan. But then you also have China and Russia, who both have their own major plans for the moon. And China in particular has been making some seriously rapid progress. So yeah, the stage is set for a pretty intense competition between global superpowers. So what's the prize? This quote gets right to the heart of it. A huge part of the motivation here is geopolitical. Building a base on the moon isn't just a cool science project. It's a massive statement about your country's power, its technology, and its leadership on the world stage.
To really wrap your head around this motivation, the source material makes a really fascinating comparison to another time in history, another era of intense global competition.
Think about that for a second. This comparison basically reframes the whole mission. It's suggesting that this new space race is like the modern version of those old scrambles for territory and influence. Grabbing a foothold on the moon is kind of like establishing a strategic colony, getting your spot before another empire does. Now, an ambition this huge, well, it doesn't come cheap. So let's talk about the money, because when you throw around a number like $20 billion, you're going to get a healthy dose of skepticism along with it. And there it is. The initial price tag for this whole thing is a whopping $20 billion. And get this, that's just the seed money to get the project started. I mean, by any measure, that is an enormous investment. And that, of course, leads to the big question everyone's asking. $20 billion is a ton of money, but is it anywhere near enough to build a habitable base on another planet? The source material makes it clear that there are some serious doubts about that.
And here's the counter-argument, put very bluntly. The commentator here is basically saying, no way. They compare it to big projects here on Earth that always go over budget, and the feeling is pretty clear. That initial $20 billion, that's probably just the beginning.
Okay, so let's put the politics and the budget debates aside for just a minute. Let's zoom out and look at the really big picture here. What would it actually mean for us, as a species, to have a permanent home on the moon? I mean, this is the historic part of it all. The International Space Station orbits the Earth.
But a lunar base? That would be our very first true off-world settlement. A permanent place to live on another celestial body. It would be a fundamental step in our journey to becoming a spacefaring species.
And so, that leaves us with this final question. When we look up at the moon now, what are we really seeing? Is this the beginning of a multiplanetary future for all of humanity? A stepping stone to the stars? Or is it just the next big playground for old rivalries, a contest between empires played out in the silence of space? The answer is probably a little bit of both.